The button.
Yeah. We are live, so see him on the other side.
It's Saturday night with Lily and Zio. Ah! Hey.
Hello, hello, hello. Zio, I am so happy to talk to you about your new book, which is coming out on Tuesday. It's called
Yeah.
Love on the Byline. It is about two journalists, and I want you to tell me about it.
So it
No, sorry, one
is
journalist, one
a
screenwriter.
journalist and a writer and a writer. Yeah. But they, they've known each other for a bit. They went to college together. Ollie was a year ahead of Blake, but they ended up in the same class, mostly because he took it as an elective. And I think he'd sort of seen her before in other classes, and maybe that was incentive to take this elective, who knows. But they bonded and became friends, and there was a little bit of flirtation going on there, but they never took it any further. Mostly because Ollie's best friend Bran is one of those guys that you all know in university who's like seems like charmed, you know what I mean? Like his life just goes really well. He's like sports and whatever. And he just rubs Blake the wrong way. So as soon as she realizes that they're best friends, her opinion of Ollie sort of changes a little bit and she backs off. And then you fast forward some years later and they run into each other again. Blake is working as a journalist at a newspaper in Los Angeles. She's from a family where they had a prominent journalist. Her grandfather is like won all the awards, is like well known and respected and stuff, and she wants to follow in his footsteps, but she's on the celebrity beat and she hates it. She's like writing celebrity gossip for the newspaper, and she absolutely hates it. Doesn't care anything about Hollywood or anything, celebrities or fame or any of that. And so she is sort of like begrudgingly taking the assignments that they give her. She's like really doesn't want to do it. But she ends up being offered this piece that her editor's like, look, I know you don't like this, but here's a chance for an in-depth interview with this guy. And the guy is Ollie's best friend. So they reconnect through that, and shenanigans ensue and sparks fly and all that stuff. But it's sort of like a behind the scenes of the news and behind the scenes of Hollywood too at the same time, a little bit. Yeah.
Okay, so before I get my thoughts about Blake, who I loved, and Ollie too, but Blake just had such a strength of purpose that it was so admirable right from the very first page. When she was talking to her professor, and I think we went to university, I think we all had that moment, that professor. And I know me, I chickened out. There's no way that I wouldn't have done
that was a little bit of wish fulfillment, I think, me writing that scene.
I was like, it was so great.
She's like, look.
Yeah, it was unbelievable, and she carries that right through the whole book as well. But before we get that, so what made you want to write about, did you used to be a journalist? Do you love celebrity gossip?
Yeah, I mean, you and I both write a lot about fame, right? I've read The Stand-In. I just got the comeback, so I'm going to dive into that this weekend. But I love how we both come at fame from a different angle than you normally see, I think, in romance. Like a lot of people are like I write rock romance as well, right? So you get like the rock star and the glamorous, and then like the love interest is like a groupie or an agent or something like that, but it's always about like the stardom and the fame and sort of like the money and all that. And I like to approach it from they're human beings, they're flawed, they have the same issues that we do, but on top of that they have to deal with everyone knowing their name and everyone knowing their face, you know what I mean? And I think you deal with that really well. But I think for this, I had a series, my very first like long form fiction thing that I wrote, which it wasn't the first thing I published, but it was the first thing I wrote, was set behind the scenes of a television show, because I was watching this show called Scandal that used to be on ABC, right? Shonda Rhimes. And the fandom for that show was so like rabid for any information about the actors, particularly the two leads. And they were just like pulling receipts from like, any photo of them together. And I was like, man, that would be crazy if you were like going through what they're accusing you of going through, like falling in love or having an affair or whatever. And people were like watching this happen in real time, you know what I mean? So I became sort of fascinated with that, and then my own experience with fame. And I just love writing about the different pitfalls of fame, whether it be the money or the celebrity or like people thinking they know you when they don't, like all that stuff just really fascinates me. And so I wanted to return to Hollywood, step away from music for a bit and return to Hollywood. And because it's now we're in the age of like TikTok and like, you know what I mean? So it's always something that's fascinated me. What drew you to writing about fame and celebrity?
I think it's a lot of the same thing. I also really I love the trappings of fame and celebrity. I love the idea of it. I love
Hmm.
the thought that you've got limos and personal chefs and people doing all the stuff that I actually don't want to do in my real life. Uh,
Right, right.
but it, on the flip side, I do feel that there is this, for someone who wants to be an artist, and who wants to do their best art and work with the best people and try and get the best projects. To do that, you have to bring along, like you have to kind of run this gamut of the paparazzi and the parasocial relationships and
Yeah.
all the social media and the prying into your life and the prying into the past life and all your friends' life and the rest of it, which I think is just so um it's so strange. And the way that we treat celebrities is always very interesting to me because it's like, okay,
Yeah.
there's doctors and there's social workers and people who do all this stuff. And then there's someone who acts, and it just shows me again every time,
Place
like,
those people on TV.
yeah, but how important the arts and storytelling are to people, that when someone's on TV or in that movie, we're like, whoa, that is
Hmm.
something, because I think it's just something very innateness that we're like, stories, awesome.
Yeah.
Except for writers, we don't get
Yeah.
we don't
Yeah,
get
we get an
a little
occasional
personal chef
movie and
here.
it's usually a comedy and yeah, yeah.
Yeah. But the thing I actually really, so I'm in The Girl That Stars Her Eyes, I love Candy. In this book, I
The
loved
messy
Brand.
one.
Yeah, I love Brand right from the get-go. And if I
Oh, cool.
do a spoiler, just go like this and I'll shut up immediately. But
Yeah,
I'm
yeah.
really bad with spoilers. Um, but the relationship with Ollie and Bran is so central to the story. So I'd love to hear a bit
Yeah.
more about how you decided to set that up and why you made that almost like a secondary love story in a lot of ways.
Yeah. It's funny because when I was talking to my publisher, Blue Box Press, shout out to Blue Box Press, they're awesome. And they were like, what do you want to do? And I was like, well, I have the Lily series and people kind of know me for music, but I kind of want to step away from that. Don't want to step on the toes of the Lily series. So I went back to Hollywood and I was like, I have this character in my head and he's like an up and coming actor. He's hit big almost, it seems like overnight, because it's kind of sudden what happens to him. He basically is like a secondary or tertiary character in like a Marvel type movie, and he steals the film, and so he gets like all this stuff thrown at him, and that's Bran. And Bran was the first character that came to me. And the
Ah,
first
okay.
draft, yeah, he was. And the first draft of this book of Love on the Byline, there was so much Bran in there that my editor was like, "This isn't Bran's book. Like, you need to like save this for the second." And I was like, "Oh, right, yeah, right, yeah." So, but I wanted to leave his relationship with Ollie in there because it is so central to both of their stories,
Yeah.
and I wanted to show male friendship and male companionship and male like platonic male love. And they genuinely adore each other. And I wanted the reader and for Blake to see why Ollie is so loyal to him.
Yeah.
Because when you first meet him, he is very brash and he's kind of like, he's a
Yeah.
jerk. He's
Yeah.
kind of a jerk. But
Welcome.
underneath that, yeah, I think like in the stand-in, you have like people wanting things from the celebrity because they're celebrity. You know
Yes.
what I mean? Like you give me access to the world, or you can introduce me to your agent, or you can, you know what I mean? Like give me tickets to the premiere, whatever it is. And so he's now seeing that side of it and getting used to people like coming to him for things. And so he's got
Mhm.
these few people around him that don't want anything from him except for him to live his best life. You know what I mean? And then he has this like history with her, brief as it was. It left an impression on her and it's left an impression on him. It's like, oh, well, she's already dismissed me, so I'm just going to dismiss her as well. You know what I
Yes.
mean? So there's that friction there. But I really wanted to show that he had another side, because when Brand's
Mhm.
book comes, I wanted people to want him to have his, his HEA and not think, that he didn't
Okay.
deserve one. So
I
yeah.
was hoping Bran was the second one.
Yeah.
Because it
Yeah.
really, the way his character arc is so great, but it's not even his it's the revealing of his character to us rather than how he grows and changes, because the way you just do it so perfectly, starting off in university where many of us maybe we're not our best people.
Right.
Maybe everyone learns a lot, and they're still, I want to say, pretty young, like when this is written. Blake, like, this is basically her first real journalism job out of school, and she's still feeling her way. And a lot, like, there's a few scenes where you're like, "Ooh, Blake." Like,
yeah. She has a definite. There was a scene that I cut just for length where she is offered a job at her grandfather's, the paper that her grandfather worked at for the last like 20 years of his career.
Mhm.
And she wants to take it, but she turns it down because she doesn't want to be, I got this because my grandfather, you know what I mean? So
Yep.
that's why she ends up in LA, which I think there was some stuff in there about that, but like it was much more explained in detail in that scene, which I had to cut. But she on the one side she'll say like, oh, I'm working my way up, like I'm paying my dues, and on the other side she's like, well, I deserve to be here because of who I am. You know what I mean? You're like, oh, Blake, you know what I mean? You're just like, chill a little bit, like you gotta, and I think that her editor Gideon is kind of like, he sees that in her, and he's like, yes, if anyone I know, you're going to be the one to like win the Pulitzer or whatever, but you gotta like walk before you can run. You know what I mean?
Learn still, like learn. And I thought that was interesting how Tony in The Girls with Stars with Their Eyes and Blake here, they're both falling in familial pathways, but both of them are also kind of rebelling against it. So do you think that's going to be just like an ongoing theme, or is it just something that pops up and you're like, oh, hey, wait?
It's very subconscious, because that's kind of what I did. Like I grew up in music, and my dad discouraged us from pursuing careers in music because of his experiences. Like, he's like, I'm successful, but the stuff you have to go through, especially my daughters would have to go through even more. And so he pushed us to do anything but music. And, we were all like, nah, you know what I mean? Like, you know what I mean? But like, I went to a different genre of music, and my sister went to a different genre of music, but that was our little way of rebelling, I guess, but it was like, this is in our blood. Like, how can we not do this? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So maybe there's a little bit of that. Tony, I think her relationship with fame is so different. I guess they are similar. I didn't think about that until you just said that. Blake and Tony both have an antagonistic relationship with fame.
Yeah.
I think Tony's runs a little deeper because of her mom. Like, her mom she is giving up everything, including her own daughter, to see her name on a marquee. And I think that Blake just has no respect for celebrities. She just thinks that they're pampered, whatever, blah, 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 whatever, cliche thing that people think about celebrities. That's her for sure, especially moving from the East Coast to the Los Angeles area, where it is a very different world, you know what I mean? And a very different hierarchy. And she's like, oh, this isn't real life. Like, why are you people like this? You know what I mean? Yeah.
Okay, so when I was reading the book, I was doing notes myself on my notes app. Here's a couple. Ollie, feel bad for him, because at the beginning, I really did feel like the way it's set up, I'm like, oh no, like I thought really Ollie was not going to be able to kind of step up in the way that he does really quickly in the book. And so I had that initial, Ollie. And here is no Blake with 3 exclamation marks. I don't know what she had done.
I said that a couple of times.
There's actually another one down here too. Ollie, love a man who can cook. Also want that pasta.
Oh man, yeah. It's funny. Like so I was working on Love on the Byline and the second Lily's book, Girls with Bad Reputations, that comes out in February at the same time, and I didn't realize that Ollie was cooking the same time one of the characters in that book is cooking. different way. And I was like, what is this with all this cooking? Like, what is happening right now? You know what I mean? But like it worked out. And I love that Ollie is just a caretaker.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? He's a huge caretaker. And that's just one of the things that he does to make Bran's life a little bit easier, And I think that, well, I don't want to spoil anything, but yeah, I think that that's just who he is. And when things happen to Blake, he's like, what can I do? Or have you eaten? You know what I mean? Do you need some water? You know what I mean? He's just like that guy, and I wanted him to be that guy in addition to all of the other wonderful things that he is.
And Bran, it's funny because if I'm remember, and I could be remembering this wrong, but Bran, seems to really take it for granted that Ollie's doing all the stuff for him. You know, at the during the book. But Blake's a little more like, you know, she's not suspicious, but there are times where I feel that she's a little more like, I can do it. What are you doing? She doesn't
Yeah,
quite understand that that's his I don't
his
want to say
love language.
language, but yeah, like that's
Yeah,
how
yeah,
that
yeah,
caring is how he's showing her how he feels. And she's
yeah.
a bit like, I can do it myself.
Yeah, she's very, very independent, which,
Yes.
I wish that maybe, I don't know, if I'll figure out a way of putting a little bit more of Blake's backstory in the second book or something, because I'm really curious. After I finished the manuscript, I was like, I wonder what her relationship with her parents is like. You know what I mean? Because
Mm,
you really don't see much of that. I mean, she definitely worships her grandfather, but like she doesn't
yeah.
really talk much about her parents. And so, that was something that was an afterthought. And I was like, I really should have, but then that would have been like 125,000 word book, you know what I mean? But yeah, they care very deeply for the people in their lives, but in a very different ways. And
Hmm.
I think that Blake's worldview, she wants to save the world. Do you know what I
Yeah.
mean?
Hmm.
And Ollie wants the people in his immediate world to be saved. Like, you know what I mean? Like, he's like, I want to
Yes.
care for the people that are right around me. Like, I love the world, but like, this is my, you know what I mean? And she's like,
Yeah.
save everyone, right? Do everything. She's an activist, and he's like, the
Yeah.
homebody, I guess. Yeah.
Yeah. Which is a really interesting match for the two of them as they're trying to
Yeah.
negotiate their relationship um from university to like, adulthood and fame and the stuff that
Yeah.
happens that I will not go
Yeah, yeah. I
because I
don't
don't
want to
want to
spoil it
spoil
too much.
anything.
Yeah.
But do you find a lot? So you just mentioned like, oh, the relationship with parents. Do you find sometimes you're writing and you kind of put something in, and then you're in like the final rounds of editing, you're like, dang, I kind of want to talk about that a bit more, but it's done. You
You're
can't.
done. Yeah,
Yeah.
you can't.
Or someone
Yeah.
just
I'm
like, well,
like,
what about that? You're like, really good question. I don't know. I didn't think that all the way through. What do you think? Like, does that happen to you a lot? Or you just like when the book's done, you're like, and here it
no,
is.
no, I'm constantly thinking like, oh man, I could write a deleted scene or something like that. Like, just to, you know what I mean? Because these characters, I don't know about you, but like the characters to me become people that I know. Do you know what I
Mm,
mean? And so their lives are ongoing, their pasts are still building.
yeah.
So sometimes like I'll write another book, completely separate book, and like that person will creep into the book somehow in a mention or something.
Yeah.
That happened with Love on the Byline, when I was like, okay, well, this is set in this place that I've written in before. Maybe some of those characters would be in their world, and they are. So there's a bunch of people in this book that were in my long initial like original fiction piece, Falling Stars,
Mhm.
which will come back at some point as a serial. But it's just, I was
Is
like, these
Gideon
people
one?
already
Because I love
exist.
Gideon.
Gideon, oh, I love Gideon. Yeah, I'm definitely gonna have him around, especially since he's like, head up. And Sonya's not, well, I'm not gonna spoil anything, but like there are people in the book who will be making an appearance again, whether people want to. It's kind of like Candy. Like Candy in Girl with Stars in Her Eyes was
Yes.
such
That's
a
correct.
hateful character
No.
that people
Love
love her.
love
They
her.
love her. And she's all over the second Lily's book.
Okay. Like,
So
do I want a Candy in my life? Absolutely not. No.
no.
Do I
Yeah.
love Candy in fictional characters' lives? Yes.
Because
Yes, I
she's
do.
wonderfully messy. Like, what's
Yeah.
the messiest character you think you've written so far in your?
I think I am too anxiety ridden to be messy. And so it's really hard for me to write full on because a really messy characters just, they have no boundaries. They have no
Yeah.
boundaries. They have no rules. And it's so difficult for me to even, like, you can't anticipate what they're going to do at any moment.
Yeah.
It is so difficult for me to get in that mindset because like I am just too like
Yeah. Yeah.
buttoned up at all times. Um, so I like, even my, I don't want to say evil characters, but my, not great characters like Todd and the stand-in, they're very deliberate. Like
Mm-hmm.
they don't lose control. They are very deliberate about how they manipulate people and hurt people.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, So yeah, I think it'd be really fun to be able to write like a super messy character. But for me, I'm
Very
one of the type
freeing.
that, yeah, I feel it would be. Um, but I think it might also make me tense.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah, like I'm always surprised that people are like, Candy deserves her HEA. I'm like, does she though? Like, really? Because like she, especially at the second book. I mean, if they still think that after the second book, I'll be like, I'm worried
oh,
about
okay.
you. But I mean, I tried not to make her a caricature, you know what I
Yeah.
mean? And I think I fleshed her out a bit more in the second book, so maybe people might feel more sympathy for her. I don't know. But I did have a question for you though. So, do you think you would ever swap places with a celebrity? Like, if you could like live as a celebrity for a week or a month or whatever, would you do it?
I would totally do it.
Did you do it?
I would okay, as long as with the biggest caveat as I don't have to do the thing that they do. So I don't have to act,
Ah,
sing, or dance, or
just
model.
the lifestyle then.
Yes, it's just the lifestyle.
Right, right.
Because if they're like, oh, and also you've got to go in, this Marvel movie, I would shrivel and die. Because there's just no way I could. But would I love to experience that lifestyle? Yes. Um, I will always read like those clickbait articles on like lifestyle of a billionaire. I'm like, what is it? What is it? How many like cryo
Yeah,
machines do you have? Like,
yeah,
tell me. Um, I would get so many like just facials, full body massages every day. Uh,
yeah, yeah.
yeah, would you
Get all the freebies.
eat all the freebies?
Um, no, I wouldn't.
No,
No.
someone would clean your house. Someone would make your food.
Yeah.
It's just for a week.
For a week? Maybe. I mean, like, I think if I were like, if I were, you know what I would do? I would take a celebrity vacation,
Oh yeah,
like Bali,
yeah,
one of those like, swim
yeah,
out of your hotel room in the middle of the
yeah,
ocean type things, and then have the personal chef and all that stuff. I would vacation like a celebrity, but I wouldn't live like a celebrity because it's just too the paparazzi freak me out.
yeah.
They really do.
I think okay, so I would do 1 week living as a celebrity because I would like to, like I've seen videos of um stars coming out and just all of the lights, all of the cameras, and I have an image in my head of what it'd be like, and I'm so curious. So like it feels like such a physical
You can
experience.
feel
Yeah,
the heat of the bulbs. It's really weird. I don't know how to describe it. It's like someone blowing hot air on your face.
yeah.
It's really weird. And you can't see anything. There's just so much glare and stuff. That's
So
why
much
so many
going
people wear
on.
sunglasses at night. But
Yeah.
like, it's like a celebrity thing. But yeah, but it's really disconcerting. And I wasn't even at the center of the attention. You know what I mean? Like I was just sort of like standing on the side and it's still like, oh my gosh,
Yeah, it just
doing
seems
that.
like so much. And I'm just very curious about what that experience is, and then to be able to leave it.
To walk away from it. Yeah.
And then I will
Yeah.
join you in Bali.
Yeah.
And we'll like get those floating breakfasts. Um,
Yes.
and yeah,
Yeah.
which
That
I'm
those
yeah,
trappings I would definitely do.
yeah.
And I do like a nice, limo ride.
I would fly first class, which I've never flown.
Oh, first class is fun. Yeah, but there's first class and then there's first class. Like some of the like non-US airlines that have first class where it's like, a room. You know what I
Yeah,
mean? Like close your door, put your television on. Like it's like that's different than like getting a glass of wine before you take off. You know what I mean? Like it's a
I
totally
want
different
the one, it's
experience.
got like a bed and there's a
Yeah.
shower and there's a separate bar area. There's like stairs somewhere. Uh,
Yeah.
that is what I want. And I wanted a long haul flight, and I will not sleep the whole time just to like experience it.
Yeah, yeah. Now I had to do research on trailers and tour buses for these two books. Like in Love of the Byline, Brand's trailer is a nice one, but it's not as good as the one he's gonna have in the second book because he's doing his own film and stuff like that. But I was like, what can you fit in these things? Like, what are the amenities and what are the grade of amenities and stuff like that? And looking at tour buses for the Lilies, it was like some of these are like mansions on wheels. I was
Yeah.
like, they're not quite there yet, but it was interesting. looking at what's available and what people have and what they can do with some of these spaces. So the tour
Yeah.
buses I was on as a kid were like, you know, they had nice seats, you know what I mean? And like, you know, a little kitchenette and like a, you know, a bathroom or whatever. But these are like homes on wheels, you know.
Yeah. Like almost more like a giant RV than
Yeah,
a
yeah,
bus.
yeah,
Yeah.
with more beds and like, you know, there's always somebody arguing over who gets the bedroom, like the actual bedroom, and then everyone else gets bunks, you know, but it's
Yeah.
still pretty nice. It's still pretty cool.
Yeah. I would like to experience that too. I can't play a note. I tried to teach myself piano. It was a mess.
Oh no.
Put my kid in piano for years. She's, you know, it took her about 3 minutes to be better than me after a year. But what are you going to do? So it's funny. I was reading Love in the Byline, and the book I just handed in last month is actually about two journalists.
Oh
So
really?
yeah, so I was reading, I was like, I don't know if you knew, I used to work for a media company for like 10 years.
Yeah, yeah.
So I was reading and I was like, oh my God, this is too funny. This is like, this is so serendipitous. So
But I
hopefully
feel like, yeah,
we'll
I
see
mean, I can't,
journal shots.
if you need some like, you know, some eyes on that for, I don't know, beta reading, but I feel like
It's coming
journalism
your way.
has
You've just offered,
been,
it's coming your way now.
oh yeah, then yeah, I'll keep an eye out for it. But I feel like journalism over the last few years has been brought, I mean, it's always been very, very important, but I feel like the importance of it has been brought to the forefront. Like people realize that where they get their information from really matters. Do you know
Yeah.
what I mean?
Mhm.
And even though I'm sort of doing this in a sort of a light way with, you know, a rom-com or my version of a rom-com, it's not really a rom-com. It's still like, okay, here's a person who's really dedicated, like the whole conversation she has with her professor in the beginning of the book,
Yeah.
and his idea of what journalism is and her idea of what journalism is was like, you know, you can't be completely dispassionate about the things you're writing about, because then you're not getting to the heart of the matter. Do you
Yeah.
know what I mean? And that's difficult with so many things happening right now and people trying to write about them and remain or keep their emotions in check. Like, I don't know if I could do it. I'd just be like rage, you know, typing all about everything.
Yeah.
So hats off to anyone who can do it with any sort of like even, you know, temperament, because I couldn't do it, but it's so important. Like, it's
Yeah.
so important.
And in your story, you address some of the challenges. So you address like, you know, the lack of jobs,
Mhm.
just the massive cutbacks that have hit the entire industry in North America,
Yeah.
which has devastated, like, you know, a lot of smaller markets, rural
Mhm.
markets, even the larger markets. Like we've seen so many huge changes. AI,
Mhm.
you know, what's going on with AI. Like it's such an industry in flux. And the changes happen so fast.
Yeah. Yeah.
Especially in the last few years, we've seen like, oh my gosh, it's so different in so many ways.
Well, you
Uh,
had like a lot of newspapers that went out of either out of print, or they consolidated, or they went online only, or whatever.
yep.
Like it's just, and then the introduction of AI on top of that, you know, like,
Yeah.
hey, you thought that was bad, here
Like,
you
guess
go. You know, guess what?
what?
Yeah, yeah. It's I didn't want to touch on that because it's still so new and no one
Yeah.
quite knows where it's gonna go. So I didn't want to like bring that into there, but it was definitely on my mind. I was like, oh, I could throw something in there about that, but everyone's still debating what's gonna happen. And,
I didn't
you
put
know,
AI in at all because I'm like, I can't. I just can't.
yeah, yeah,
Like,
yeah. I was like, oh, I can't do it. Yeah. So Stand-in was your debut rom-com, right?
yeah.
Yeah. What made you write that? Like, what made you say, oh, I'm gonna write a rom-com about celebrity? And I
Um,
love that trope, by the way. The
you
like,
know what? I do too. Like, I love the celebrity trope. I love hidden identity, hidden relationship stuff. It's very fun
yeah.
to me. You know, it was my agent had suggested that I write a rom-com in the summer. Um, and I was like, not super funny. I don't think that's gonna fly. Like, I don't think I could do it. And then December came around, December 2019 going to 2020.
Mm,
And do you remember what happened with RWA and the romance kind of? So that
mhm,
all started happening. And I was like, and I was seeing like, you know, just a lot of forums and stuff of people saying things that I did not particularly like or agree with. And I was
Yeah.
like, this is ridiculous. Except, how I don't know about you. I often feel like I am a very tiny, insignificant speck in the universe that can not really do anything to combat climate change or racism or sexism or any of the terrible things happening. So I just
Mhm.
try to not see it and freak out by myself, right? And I was like, you know what? Like, I am actually right. The one thing I do is I write. So I thought, well, I can try to write a book that addresses some of these things, but in a way that is still kind of funny.
Yeah.
But yeah, so it was on the same day I emailed my agent. She texted me. She's like, we need to talk. I'm like, we need to talk. And she's like, I really want you. And I'm like, I'm going to write a rom-com. She's like, awesome, great. And that's it. Like we brainstorm, like my agent's amazing. I love her so much. We do a lot of like our brainstorming together.
Oh, cool.
She's very kind about, because I'm just like kind of zapping here, there, and everywhere. She's like,
Yeah.
okay. Do you really think that could be a full story? And I'm like, yeah. She's like, really think
But
about
do
it.
you?
She's like, well, then talk me through it. I'm like, okay, well, this thing happens. And she's like, uh-huh. And I'm like, and then they fall in love and kiss. And she's like, okay, well, I don't think that's
She's
really
like, that's a short story.
like, maybe you want to think about that a bit more. And then I wrote The Stand in 6 months. Wrote it
Wow.
during the first months of the pandemic. Um,
I have it on my Kindle. I don't have a hard copy of it. I should have got one from you last week
yeah.
when we were at Stimulant.
And
Stimulant.
that was it. Then I wrote it. That was it.
I don't know if I was on the panel that we were on or if it was something that I said at a different panel recently, but I think of romance because I came really, really late to romance. I didn't like read romance
Yeah,
until
you
I accidentally
mentioned.
wrote one. Yeah. So 2013 was like my intro into romance. And the thing I loved about it, aside from there being something for everyone, like it doesn't matter what genre you read, sci-fi, thriller, whatever, it's all in romance. But I think that it's a very subversive genre. Like it has the ability to like slip life lessons in, under the guise of like kissing and stuff. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
It's like, I'm going to teach you about racism. I'm going to teach you about homophobia. I'm going to teach you about,
yeah,
misogyny. And you're going to love it because these guys are smooching and it's hot. You know what I mean? So it's like, I love that we get to do that. We call it, the literature of hope, but it's also like the literature of, I don't know, education. Like we educate people about agency and about, sexual wellness and like all kinds of stuff. It's amazing
yeah.
what the genre
Yep.
does.
Well, I mean, one of Abby Jimenez's books, it is Part of Your World, and it has
Mm,
a domestic violence subplot. Um, and at the back, it also has some information if
hmm
you know somebody in that situation.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
there's so many ways that you never know what a reader's going to go through or is going through or knows somebody who's going through something that
Yeah.
can, you know, like I have learned so much through romance books. So I'm like, wow, like that different perspective has really shifted how I look at things,
Yeah.
how I think about things, how hopefully sometimes how I react to things. Um, but I do think it's like it is a super subversive genre just for its attention to women's emotions, women's feelings, women's relationships.
hmm hmm
Um, and the change from when I started reading them when I was much too young to now, um, just in terms of what I see on the page is surreal.
Uh-huh.
But now I'm wondering sometimes, I say that if I went back to the 1980s or whenever,
hmm
those books, were those books like the ones that we have now where there is full agency and there isn't a lot of like, alpha male stuff, that was
hmm
very common. And I'm going to put this in quotes in the bodice rippers, back in the day.
Yeah.
Those books there, but I just couldn't find them or didn't see them.
Mm.
Like I've,
Well, I mean, I feel like with the advent of self-publishing and indie publishing, we're probably seeing more voices than you would have seen, you know what I mean? Or we definitely seeing more voices. Like there was something I was reading an interview with you when you were talking about representation on the page and diversity in romance. And we're definitely seeing an increase of that over the last few years because it was desperately needed. But I
Yeah.
feel like in trad, it's starting to creep into trad. We were starting, you and I are writing for a publisher that I feel like when I started 10 years ago, probably wouldn't have looked twice at my stuff. Do you know what I mean?
Yep.
Not this publisher, but any publisher wasn't looking for what I had to get to offer.
Yeah.
And I feel like indie publishing and self-published authors who feel like, okay, there's an audience out there for this lesbian pirate, whatever diverse cast thing that I'm writing, and there is, and
Yeah.
those people find themselves in. It's so important to see yourself in the media that you consume, and I think that for a long time people didn't even realize they weren't seeing themselves, and it didn't occur to them that it was something that they should have. Do you know what I mean? So I feel like now people are like demanding that there's more of them in these books. And I think that's another amazing thing that romance has brought. Romance and sci-fi. I think science fiction and romance are the two that sort of push the envelope, and push us forward.
Well, I mean, was it the first? Okay, so sidebar, I actually, there is a legit amazing lesbian sapphic pirate book. It's called Uncharted. It's a series. It's by Allie Temple, if you're looking for that. Like, I believe the first interracial kiss was Star Trek. So it was a sci-fi show, right? You know, again, it's how we're able to kind of like bring this stuff in and normalize it. Normalize what is normal for many.
Normal. Yeah. I remember like, I don't know, like my second or third book, I remember someone asked me like why I write diverse casts or why I write queer characters. And I'm like, because that's the world that I live in. Like, I don't know, what am I supposed to write? It was just such a strange, like, I remember it taking me off guard, and I was like, okay, this is a question I'm going to get. So I have to come up with an answer that makes sense for people who don't understand why you would feel the need to write characters who look like the people around you or who are like the people around you. It was so strange. But I was like, I guess when you're looking at, someone would Google romance, 6-7 years ago, and all of the covers kind of look the same. Do you know what I mean? And now you're starting to see Lily Chu pop up, or, Kennedy Bryan pop up, or Farrah, you know what I mean? Like, Adriana Herrera pop up or whatever. Whereas, before it was kind of like all kind of the same stuff. So I guess it was a legit question at the time. But if someone asked me that right now, I'd be like, you know what, you need to open your horizons.
I think I'd probably just kind of sit there. I'd be like, I don't, can you rephrase that? Because I'm missing something.
Yeah. I think the conversation now is about like we did the 23 for 23 initiative. There's a little thing in here flying around at Steamy Lit, which is read 23 books by BIPOC authors before the end of 2023, which I think is a fantastic initiative. But the fact that we have to do these things to get people to read something that's outside of their little box is so frustrating to me. Like, I love that people we're on board and they're supporting it and everything like that. But it's like, are we still having this conversation where people are only reading one kind of book, by one type of author? It's just like, oh my gosh.
Yeah.
This is,
especially now with all the book banning and, politicization of reading. I think it's so much more important now to keep having more and more different voices out there telling different stories.
Absolutely.
Which reminds me, I have to do I joined the 23 for 23 too, so I had to put the post up.
Yeah.
Oh, and I can put yours as my first book.
Oh, cool. Yeah, you did. The 23 for 23, for those of you guys who don't know, it's 23for23.net, I think is the address. It's in my link tree, so if you guys go to my website, you'll find it. But it's a great initiative, and you can there's some awesome books on the starter list, but there's dozens, hundreds of authors out there that everyone should be reading. And so, use the little hashtag whenever you read something and sort of support those authors, and we'll see if it moves the needle, because there's some really fantastic books out there that don't get the same sort of recognition as other books do, and that, they're just as good, if not better. So hopefully, we'll see
there were quite a few authors on those sheets that were new to me, so I'm excited to dive in.
Yeah. Other than Byline, have you had a chance to read much lately? Are you reading anything?
I've been reading some arcs. I am currently I've been getting into mysteries a bit because I really want to write a mystery.
Ooh.
Yeah, and I'm terrible at them. I can never remember. It's not, I can never remember the clues. I skim the kind of clue stuff to get to the people part.
Mhm.
So I suck at it. So I figure if I'm reading more, that'd be great. So I'm reading Ruth Ware, the It Girl right now. I read T. Kingfisher. I'm also reading a nonfiction book about the history of Tokyo,
Oh, cool.
which has like super tiny font. So, I have to put on my super nerdy reading glasses to read it.
I thought
But
you're
but then
cute.
you're always kind of like up and down. And if I look at anything besides the exact point on the page, I feel nauseous.
Oh
Um,
no.
so I think maybe they're not the right reading glasses.
Maybe not. Maybe
Yeah.
not.
But how about you? What are you reading?
I am reading, I just have the arc here, Kiss and Spell from Celestine Martin, which
Oh,
is so cute. I didn't read the first book, so I want to go back and read it before I
okay.
actually finish this one. But I don't think you need to read them both. But I was like, you know me, I like to know the entire universe when I'm reading something. And then I just got, oh, there was something else I just got, and I was like, oh, I gotta read this. Oh, Cool World or Cold World. With Love
Oh,
from Cold World.
I saw that
Yeah.
cover. That cover is so
This
cool.
cover, if you guys haven't seen this is one of the coolest covers
Yeah,
I've ever
love that
seen.
one.
It is such a cool cover.
Yeah.
And so I picked this up and I'm going to read that
Okay.
next. But
I want
yeah,
to
I'm excited
It's
to read
amazing,
that.
like what a cover will do. Like I have a bunch of people who picked up the stand-in because the cover is extremely eye-catching.
It is, it
Because
is.
Lenny Kaufman is just an incredible artist. But I found one of my favorite authors because I like the cover, Alistair Reynolds, who writes science fiction, and the cover
Mhm.
was just cool. Like you're just like, oh,
Yeah.
that's cool.
Yeah,
It's
yeah,
like
yeah.
kind of shiny black with some red on it. But it was really like, but yeah,
Yeah.
like the covers are so, I didn't kind of think it through, before I started writing, but covers are so vital. When you're
Yeah.
just scanning through, you're like, that's it. I want to read that.
Yeah. I'm really, really particular about my covers, which is why I was really particular about which publishers I wanted to work with.
Mm.
Because like being indie for so long, because my first 8 books were indie. And so I was kind of like, oh, I don't want to give up creative control over my characters or my covers, you know what I mean? But I was like, I want to reach more readers. And
Yeah.
so both Source Books and Blue Box Press were really great about cover. Like Source Books has its own machine or whatever, but they were still pretty collaborative. And then working with Blue Box Press on the cover for Love on the Byline, there's actually some Easter eggs in the cover for the second book. So in the in Ollie's t-shirt,
Yep.
there's a picture of Bran
Oh no.
in character, and then way back at the bottom on the
Yep.
billboard is a picture of Bran in costume.
Amazing.
So like there's
That's
people are like, whose book is next? I'm like, you can't tell from the cover, but then but like we had so much fun. I was like, I need a pencil behind her ear. He wears glasses, his hair's got to be messy. Like the whole collaborative effort of putting that cover together was a lot of fun.
Yeah.
And then we went through a couple of things. They were like, what do you have in mind? And I was thinking originally of like the old movie posters from like the 60s.
Yep.
Where they were like bold colors and so it's got this great color. And then I love the font, because it reminds me of like taking notes, like in a report,
Yeah.
so it was really fun putting that one together.
So when you're
So,
looking at books, what is a cover that would catch your eye? Like, are you looking at the color, the overall vibe? Are you looking for stuff that looks familiar or stuff that looks different?
I love different.
Yeah,
I design, a lot of the covers, my indie covers are mine, and I like doing really, really different things.
yeah.
I do this anthology every year for Pride, called Love Is All. And not this year, but last year, I did this cover, which is so, it's just, it's just like line art. And I wanted it to be really, really, because everything else has been super colorful.
Yeah.
This year we had like black with that
Ooh,
on it. Yeah.
that's really eye-catching. That's amazing.
Yeah. But I wanted it to be evocative of like the mood of the moment. And this year it was like, we are fighting for our rights. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
Last year I just wanted something really, really different. I was like, I want, because you see all like a lot of things come out in the month of June, and it's like rainbows and
Yeah.
everything, which is fantastic. But I was like, I wanted something that would stand out. So I will go for different, working with a publisher, they're like, oh, we don't know that that's necessarily gonna work. You know what I mean? But
Yeah.
I'm like, I'll take a chance. That's why I like being a hybrid, because we can take
Yeah.
chances with your indie titles that your publisher wouldn't necessarily do. But they've both been great.
Yeah.
Working with on the artwork and stuff. The cover for the second Lily's book is amazing as well. I don't know if I don't think I have that here anywhere. Because the arcs don't have the cover on it. It's just white.
Well,
But it's a really, really beautiful.
the cover for the first one, I thought was, at first I didn't realize it was even a romance.
Yeah.
So unusual for the genre, not unusual, but for the genre, because I think I've been kind of trained to certain expectations, like illustrated cover,
Mhm.
page covers, like, what have you.
Yeah. The
Like,
couple on the cover.
yeah.
Right.
And
Yeah.
you see that one, you're like, whoa, what is that? Like
Yeah.
it kind of, I need to know more cover.
Yeah. Yeah.
But for
And
this one, I think
it's
it's a little more
very,
traditional.
this one's definitely more traditional. The one for yeah, I don't have here. The one for Girls with Bad Reputations is very, very colorful especially compared to the first Lily's book, which is like black, and then
Yeah.
Tony's kind of peeking out from there. This one is Kayla's is like totally in your face. She's got lots of red hair, and it's like this cloud of red hair around her, and and lilies all over. So it's very
Awesome.
different. But again, I don't think it screams romance either.
Mhm.
So curious to see. Like this one is definitely like this shows you exactly what's in this book. And I love how she's walking away from him and he's just like looking, everything that I've done for like promo and stuff. I have these two figures. I keep putting them together. Next to each other, like like Barbies or something, you know what I mean? Like put them next to each other. Yeah. But I love this cover. This is my first like proper romance cover, I think. And I do love it.
Yeah. Yeah. My next the book I just wrote, the journalist book, it's
Does it have a title yet?
It's called Drop Dead because it's actually, one of them is an obituary editor. So it's
Oh
an
wow.
obituary editor and a journalist.
I love that.
Dual POV. So it's his and her.
Mhm.
So I'm very curious to see where we go with covers and whatnot.
I wanted to ask you about the audio because you've got, I mean, I love Philippa Sue. So like, how did that happen? Like, were you like, really? Because I would have
Yeah,
been.
I was absolutely like, really. So my deal is with Audible and Sourcebook. So I have a dual deal. My books come out
Mhm.
first. They're Audible originals that come out on Audible, and then a few months later they come out in print.
Mhm.
So when it came time to choose a narrator, they're like, "Hey, here's who we're thinking," and I'm not going to say who was on the short list, but I was like, whatever, like,
You're like, yeah, right.
yeah, right. And then they're like, okay, this is who we've narrowed it down to. What do you think? And again, I was like, sure, like, you go ahead, you try that. We'll see what happens.
Mhm.
And then my editor emailed me. She's like, hey, great news. Philippa's on board. And I was like, and I was sitting on my dingy couch downstairs, and my house is like super dark. And I was working because I was working full time. And the email came through, and then like, I was like, no way. And literally screamed and dropped the phone, had to go after the phone, because sometimes I'll see things, and if it's really good news, I won't believe it. So
Yeah.
then
Oh yeah, I'm the
it's
same.
just my mind putting in the, we're pleased to have you on board. We'd love to accept you this job. Philippa Sue is narrating your book, but it actually says sorry. So then I had to go after it. And it did not say sorry. It actually did say she's on board. And then the editor,
Oh man.
yeah, she wants to have a chat with you. I'm like, on the phone?
You're like, can we Zoom? Because I would have been like,
Well, I didn't even think to ask. So when the phone call came, and this would have been, oh, I don't know, summer 2020, I think.
mhm.
Maybe fall at this
We
point.
were all stuck inside.
Still, everything's still horrible.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
still had not managed the whole Zoom situation very well. And I realized I'm about to go on the call. I'm like, I don't know if it's audio or like a video call, but it's somehow also two different things. So I'm like, call both. I'm so anxious. I screw it up. And then I get this call, like, they're like, hello, I'm calling for like on behalf of Philippa. Can you do this call? I'm like, I'm so sorry. But luckily my awkwardness really helped kind of coast over the first part of the phone call, because I was just like, I'm sorry, like, I'd love to give an excuse, but this is really how I am all the time. And she was lovely. She was amazing. Everything you think about how cool she was cooler.
Wow, that's so cool. That was really neat.
It was
Somebody was it I'm trying to think if it was, I think it's Vanessa Riley, maybe, or Piper Beasley. One of them has the actress from Bridgerton who plays Queen Charlotte. Yeah. No, not Queen Charlotte, who plays the oh my god, her best friend. What is her title?
Oh, Lady
Lady Danbury.
Yeah. Danbury.
She's narrating, and I was like, oh my gosh, these voices, like, phenomenal actresses, but then they do, when you hear them just in your ear, you're like, oh my gosh, you're amazing. Yeah.
And I'm really sensitive to a lot of sounds. Like I can't stand like popping noises or just like various sounds. Especially if they're right there in your ears. So there's a lot of books that I've DNF'd on audio because just one sound,
mouth noises.
Mouth noises. And I'll just go to, I'll read the physical book instead. But yeah, it's when you hear a great narrator performing it, it's just like, I'm not even going to do stuff. Like, I'm just going to sit here and, revel in it.
Yeah. A good voice. I read mostly via audio now, just because we're on our computers all day and our screens all day. So I'm like, it's an hour before I'm about to go to sleep, I'll close my eyes, put my headphones on, and just like drift off to a chapter. And a really good narrator, a really good voice actor can keep out, like, when the timer goes off, I'll hit the thing again and be like, I will listen to some more, because it's so good, and they're just like pulling you into the world. They can really elevate an already good book, or like a not so great narrator can crash a book that I've already loved. You know what I mean? So
there is a
really
book
heartbreaking.
That, is audio only, and I was looking so for it. It was my treat book. Like, I don't know if you do treat books. I do treat books like like a Sunday, where it's, if I finish some projects, like, finally I can enjoy
it.
The narrator was not my cup of tea. Like, it just I could tell they were an excellent narrator, but just not for me. I was just so sad. I was like, oh.
Yeah, I've done that. And then I'm like, I don't want to, and then I don't want to return it because I've already paid for it. And that's really bad. So I'm like, I'm not going to listen to it, but I can't return it either. Yeah.
And then sometimes, like, well, maybe I'll just put it out loud on my phone and I won't have my earphones. And that helps sometimes. But it takes a little bit of that enjoyment off of it.
Just a little bit. Yeah.
Just like, sadness. I want to love that.
So the comeback is out. When did it release? Because we see stuff so far in advance, and I've never known when anything's out.
Yeah, it came out in May this year. It came out in audio July last year.
Right. Okay.
And then
you confused me with the dual release thing. Now I get
it. Well, I have to think it through too, and especially because publishing timelines are just, I'm looking at stuff for 2024, 2025. And I was like, they're like, when's it coming? I'm like, July in some year, like, just in some year in the future, something will happen.
Right.
But
I was like that with Love on the Byline. I'm like, it's coming out, because we moved the date a couple of times, and then we finally settled on the date, and I had told people, oh, it's coming out and whatever, and they're like, are you really? I was like, no, it's up for pre-order. Like, so they're like, really? I'm like, no, really, here's an arc. They're like, okay. So and definitely coming out on Tuesday.
Cover reveals are so far in advance. Like, sometimes I see them almost a year in advance of the book. And then the pre-orders are so far in advance. I'm like, I am an impulsive person. I want this now. Like, I don't want to know I will get it, many months from now. I want it in my eyeballs at this moment.
I have no chill when it comes to, like, especially if, like, an author I really love is like, I'm working on this book. I'm like, well, send it. Like, just send it the way it is right now. I don't care if it's finished. Just, like, chapter at a time, please. Like, That's the fanfic reader in me though. Like I want instant gratification. Like I can't
Yes.
wait for
Yeah. It's like that next chapter is up the next day. Let's go.
yeah, 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 yeah. Are you
This is
doing any
why,
more events?
um, yes. So the Toronto Romance writers
Whoa,
is doing, whoa,
sorry. No, music just started playing in my ear for no reason.
interesting.
It was
It's like
block
I've got
party
my
if
own
anyone
theme
was
song.
interested. Yeah, you did.
They're doing a conference in September. So I'm doing a panel on audiobooks.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Yep. Which should be really fun. So I think there's a narrator, there's an editor, there's someone from, I believe, Lyric, who is an audiobook producer.
Producer,
There's
yeah.
lots of different perspectives on audiobooks, if that's something people are interested in. And it's such, the field is, or the area of the industry is growing. So I think it's
Yes.
something we all like have become so much more aware of in the last few years.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah,
yeah.
I started putting my stuff in audio immediately.
Yeah.
With my very first book, because when I would go to Audible, there'd be very few romances there, like a few hundred
Yeah.
or something, like less than 1,000 for sure. And I was like, man, really? I kept telling everyone, and they were like, it's so expensive to get into audio, and it really is. But like, it's a whole different audience. There are people who only read via audio.
Yes.
You know what I mean? And I'm one of those people now, unless I have an arc or something, that I want to read. It's all audio, So
Yeah. No, I have, because mine are staggered in both. Like I have people who will listen to audio and don't know they come out in print, and I have people who
yeah,
read print and are
who
surprised that,
didn't know that it was,
yeah, that it's an audio.
yeah,
And I also know people who, if a book isn't in audio, they'll put it on with like a screen reader, like
like voice tech or text to
yeah,
voice
like
thing.
voice tech,
Yeah.
and have it
Hmm.
read to them. Uh,
Yeah. Yeah.
there's
I just
the
listened to the sample for Love on the Byline.
oh, and
Yeah, it's gonna be cool. It's gonna be cool. I can't wait to hear the whole thing. I was hoping they would send it to me ahead of time just so I could
are you
really
having two
sink into it.
narrators or one?
Two.
Oh,
Yeah, two. Yeah, it should be good. So
yeah, I think it'll be
it's always weird. I don't know about you, but it's like it's really weird to me to listen to someone reading, especially like love scenes and stuff. I'm like, did I write that? Like, oh
yes.
my.
Yeah, I've said before, it's interesting to me because hearing the performance to me is a doorway into how readers can actually perceive certain lines or certain scenes, because
Yeah.
performer puts a nuance that wasn't in my head when I was writing that line. Um,
Hmm.
and it's like, oh, it could also be read that way, which didn't even cross it. It's not like it has a huge impact on the meaning of the scene or anything. Like it's not going to
Hmm.
shift it suddenly from a comedy
Yeah.
to a tragedy, but it will give a different gloss to it,
Yeah.
which is
Yeah.
so interesting. And I was like, oh, that's how people could read it. No
Yeah,
idea.
I remember reading Red, White, and Royal Blue the first few times, and then I got the audio.
Yeah.
And Ramon de Campo does an amazing, it's like a tour de force performance for that audiobook. And I was like, oh yeah, okay, that was not how it sounded in my head. And then watching the film, there were a couple of scenes that Nicholas Galvezine, who plays Henry, had where I know he listened to the audiobook.
Oh, really?
I'm like, that was Ramon's take on that line. Like, you know what
Yeah.
I mean? I'm like, that's
Yeah.
definitely, but which is awesome, because he
Yeah.
pulled from all the sources. But I was like, that was definitely this take on that line. But yeah, it's like the line reads so differently when you're writing it.
Yes.
And then sometimes I'll go back to the line and be like, what did I mean? What
Yeah.
was it? Yeah. And then someone reads it to you and you're like, oh my gosh, that's okay. Yeah.
Oh, okay. That can happen too. Like, I like how you put it. Like, that's their take on it, which I hadn't kind of like thought of it that way in my head, but that's it exactly. It's just a different
Yeah.
take on the line. Um,
Yeah.
which is just so, oh, it's so neat. I just think it's really neat.
It's like readers, like, some authors have those readers that will get like tattoos of their lines from the
Yes.
book on them and stuff like that. And like yeah, I don't know about you, but when I'm writing something, like someone made posters of lines from one of my books. And she had posters on her walls with these lines. I was like, when I'm writing that line, I'm like, I'm not thinking like, oh, this would make a great,
No.
poster or tattoo or whatever. So it's amazing to me when readers pull things like that,
Yeah.
and I'm like,
Yeah.
did I write that? Like, that's a really good line. You know what I mean? Like I get surprised
Yeah.
myself. Yeah.
I had a reader with an autograph book, and she's like, just put your iconic line. And I was like, I think she just saw me visibly freak out in front of her because I'm like,
Yeah.
oh, what do I do? What do I do? She's like, it's okay. I'm like,
Yeah, like write a quote from your book. Like,
I'm like, I don't know.
I remember the
just read it.
title.
I don't remember. Like,
Yeah.
I might remember a character name. What are words? Like,
Yeah.
and then she started giving me examples of different
Oh
books.
my gosh, really?
And I'm like, wow, I'm sorry to disappoint you, but
Yeah. Readers know way more about sometimes the characters in the storyline than we do.
yeah.
Yeah.
And sometimes it's just like they find connections that I was like,
Mhm.
wow, I hadn't thought of that myself.
Yeah.
But I can see it. Like once it's pointed out to me, I'm like, oh, that's really interesting.
Yeah.
Some stuff I put in deliberately, and some stuff I'm like, that just serendipitous.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. Same. But it's fun, especially going to events like we both did Steamy Lit Con last week. And that was such an enthusiastic group of readers. They were so excited because it was such a diverse event, and they were so excited to see authors and books that represented them in this space. And so they were just like giddy. You know what I mean? And I was giddy because they
I
were
was
giddy. And
giddy.
it was just like, yeah, it was a giddy event. But it was a lot of fun. And it was just, when readers say like, I saw myself in this scene, or
Yes.
you made me think of whatever. Like I heard someone say to one of the authors that we know that they had like saved them in some way, like saved their marriage or saved something. And like, yeah. And the author was kind of like, oh my gosh, like that's not what I set out to do, but my goodness, I don't even know how to respond to that. That's amazing.
Yeah.
It's incredible. And what an honor, for you to say something like that to me.
Yeah.
But it was like, yeah, books are powerful. They're
Yeah.
powerful things.
Yeah, they are. They are.
Well, we've been all over the place on this chat. Nobody had any questions for us. It's because it's a Saturday night and I should have had a glass of wine or something. It's like
I yesterday I
Saturday
had
night.
a coconut lemongrass beer.
Whoa.
I think it was called a Thai PA. It was
That's
great.
cute.
I loved it.
Yeah.
Yes. Maybe I'll have another one. Is there more about Love in the Byline that I did not ask you about that you think is important?
No, I'm really nerve-sighted. Nervous and excited.
Pinkie Pie.
Yeah. For people to discover it, because for a lot of people, The Girl with Stars in Her Eyes was their first book from me, even though that was book 8, book 9, whatever it is. I keep losing track. Book 9. And this is nothing like that book. There's some similarities, like you said, between Blake and Tony's stories or whatever, but like this is more heat, more banter, you know what I mean? It's just a different book. So I'm hoping that the readers who loved Squishy, which is my nickname for A Girl with Stars in Her Eyes, will give this one a chance, and we'll see. I have no idea. I have no expectations whatsoever. Just see what happens, and hope my publisher doesn't go, never mind on book 2. You know what I mean? Like that's
feeling before the book goes out. But
yeah.
I loved it. I thought it had the Zeo magic. So
Oh, cool.
I don't think you have anything to worry about. The characters were all incredible. I don't want to wreck any of the plot.
Yeah, it's easy to do because I was like, and then that scene where, oh right,
and some stuff happens, but
there's a lot of stuff in this book. I mean,
there's a lot of stuff.
I do. I pack a lot in there.
Yeah.
But
yeah, I don't think you're going to have anything to worry about. I've seen it on a whole bunch of anticipated lists. So.
Oh, cool. Yeah, it is weird. And this is also my first release since The Girl with Stars in Her Eyes. So it's been 2.5 years since I've released anything, which is the other thing. Yeah.
That romance, that's a lifetime almost.
It's a lifetime, So luckily I have a book in 6 months and then maybe another one 4 months after that. So I'll make up for it. I'm sorry. But
just cram it all in.
Thanks for waiting, Yeah, no, I'm excited. I'm doing an event in Louisville in 2 weeks, Readers on the River.
That's exciting.
It's sponsored by my publisher, my other publisher, Blue Box Press. So it'll be like the debut for the book because it's the week after it comes out. So we'll see how it goes.
I think it's going to go.
But
great.
yeah, I hope that people really enjoy Ollie. He is a different type of male MC.
Yep.
he's,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. I want to say he's a cinnamon roll, but he wasn't exactly. And but I can't put my finger
Yeah.
on why. It's not that he wasn't sweet. He was very sweet, but he was
He has
so,
an edge to him.
yeah.
He's a
Yeah.
cinnamon roll with like a little bit of cayenne pepper
Yes.
mixed
That's
in.
exactly. He's
Yeah.
like a
He's
cardamom.
Mexican hot chocolate. he's
Yeah.
he's like a lovely hot chocolate with a little bit of pepper in there.
He's super sweet, but he had a little bit more like not just your normal cinnamon roll character.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
He was great.
He's really he's one of my favorites that I've written. And that's saying, knowing what's coming from Bran. I love how Ollie turned out.
Yeah.
Because I was worried about writing him like I was gonna make him too sweet or too something,
Yeah.
too much of a pushover or something like that. Like I wanted to strike the balance. I'm glad that you think I did. Thank you.
Yeah. He's just one of those characters like, oh, you know what? I need an Ollie in my life.
I want an Ollie in my life, right?
Because if that dude is in your corner, he's not leaving it.
He's not leaving your corner.
He is not
And
leaving it.
yeah.
He's there. He's got like that mouth spritzer thing. He's got the bucket and he's always going to be there.
Yeah. Yeah. He's a good guy. And I think the three of them, the thing I would think I was most pleased with this book was the balance between the three of them, the friendship that ends up, between, without giving too much away. There's a lot of like growth.
Yes. Yeah. And I think that was actually, I think too, a little bit unusual for the book, because the main relationship arcs were just Ollie and Blake. It was also Blake and Bran. And Blake and Ollie and Bran. Like,
and
not
Ollie and Bran.
Blake,
And
but like,
yeah.
but just like a very you're special to this person I like.
Yeah.
So let's see. Like,
yeah. And I didn't want the best friend to be sort of like there to either thwart or warn off or like deliver the if you hurt him I'll hurt you kind of thing. You know what I mean? Like those are great, but I wanted there to be more to the relationships in it. I wanted to give them like a little cell.
Yeah.
Like they created their own little cell in this world that they're all navigating now.
Yep.
So hopefully readers will take that away. But
I think they'll probably come out and be like, oh, I want that.
Yeah, right.
I want that in my
No,
life.
yeah. It'll be out on Tuesday, so we shall see.
It's gonna be great. You're gonna have release days are always so weird though, because it's like release day and then you don't really have to do anything. It's just
I have I'm doing an IG live, Instagram live with with the publisher on Tuesday.
Okay. Nice.
And then a bunch of like stuff, in store or whatever later in the week. And then I head down to Louisville for Readers on the River.
I stand corrected. You are going to be busy on your release.
I'll be a little busy. Yeah. But it's all good stuff.
Yeah.
I love meeting readers. I do. So
yeah, it's so much fun.
Even when they have no idea who I am. They're like, you're new to me. Which book do you recommend? So I'll be like, Love on the Byline. Check that out.
You know what? A reader that's new to you is still a reader that could love your book. So
yeah. I have no problem with it.
Me neither. It's like, are you interested? Great. Let me just like
let me get into the sales pitch, that elevator pitch that that would tell us that
I'm good. You're like, no, I have more.
All right, before we go, I wanted to ask you what your favorite tropes were, because I know we talked about the celebrity thing, but do you have like in the romance world your favorite tropes or tropes that you like stay away from?
Oh, a stay away is a hidden baby.
Same. Not secret baby, and I'm not. I can't.
I don't love that. Pregnancy, I kind of tend to stay away from as well. It's just not my thing. I think I go to different genres for like more of the family stuff. Favorites, it's the celebrity stuff. I don't know, like I tend to go more, I vastly enjoy specific scenes rather than tropes in general, like a good grovel scene. And tropes where I don't even know what it's called, but the one where the one main character is in love with the second main character and the second main character kind of like is not into them.
Yeah.
And like just doesn't respect that affection and love that that first main character is giving them. And so the first main character is like, fine, then I'll go somewhere else. And then the second main character realize what they've lost.
Yeah, yeah,
Love
yeah.
that one. I don't know what the trope is.
I think that's like he fell first or she fell first, depending on which,
Oh yeah,
you
maybe
know,
that's it. But
I
it
think
also
that's what
has
it
to
is.
be like they have to understand how badly they screwed up and
Yeah.
how they have destroyed their own life and just the massive grovel that comes from that. I really enjoy it. How
I
about you?
see. I see.
How about you?
I love enemies to lovers because I think there's that it's a whole like thin line between love and hate thing. You know what I mean? And it does, I don't mean like, I mean antagonists to lovers where that's a miscommunication trope, which happens sometimes. I mean like people who really genuinely hate each other. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? And then find out that all the reasons that they hated each other for are actually not, you know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like that, that to me is just so juicy.
That is good. That is a good
Is really
one.
juicy. So
Yeah.
much tension and like,
Yeah.
and then give me some good banter in there. I also love throwing like tropes in a blender. Like
Mm,
The Girl with Stars in Her Eyes is childhood friends to enemies to friends to lovers, second
yeah.
chance. You know what I mean? And this one is like, friends to friends to friends to to lovers or whatever,
Yeah.
second chance. Yeah, so I love doing that. But give me a good enemies to lovers and
Oh,
I'm
and forced
good.
proximity. I love that.
Yeah,
Especially
yeah.
if it is enemies to lovers. So
Yeah.
those
This one has
together.
a bit of, yeah, enemies to lovers forced proximity is a perfect storm for me.
Yes.
This one has a little bit of forced proximity in it
Yep.
because, the nature
Yes.
of it. And the second Lily's book has forced proximity as well, but it's not enemies to lovers.
And you said it's Kayla's book?
It is Kayla's book. Yeah. And her love interest is a definite cinnamon roll.
Oh.
He's my little pansexual cinnamon roll bookish bus driver. Took a job driving the tour bus for the Lilies so that he could read.
Oh no. I love
Yeah.
him.
Yeah. Yeah, I love Ty. He's amazing. So
Oh, he sounds great.
yeah, yeah. So I've had a lot of people who are just like in love with words. We've got a journalist, a writer,
Yep.
and then 2 word nerds. So that's where I am right now. My next 2 books.
I'm into it. I'm here.
Yeah.
I'm for it. I love that.
Awesome. Well, thanks for hanging out with me tonight.
Yeah, thank you.
It's
It was
really fun.
awesome actually like meeting you in person. Was it
I
only
know.
a week?
Yeah, that was our first time meeting in person. And we saw like each other for 5 minutes and then that was it.
It was a busy weekend.
Yeah, it was very busy. Yeah.
But I saw you
But-
talk to people, so
Yeah, and we did the
I wasn't
panel.
spying on you. I just saw it.
Well, I was tucked over in the corner there, so in that
Yeah,
room.
you were in the
but
corner.
I was in the corner. But hopefully it was fun. I got to see everyone. I had like a good vantage point over the room
Yeah.
at the signing. But hopefully we'll do more events together
I love
next
that.
year or something. That'd be very cool.
And I'm very excited. I know your book's gonna do amazing. So congratulations
Thank you.
on its release on Tuesday.
Thank you.
I loved it. So there we go. You've got one huge fan. But I
Thanks.
will not be the only one. And I'm excited for the second Lily's book too.
Thanks. Yeah, all these books, and I'm working on Brand's book now, so we'll know that one shouldn't be too far after. So yeah,
Amazing.
I went
Amazing.
from doing nothing for 2.5 years in terms of releases because I was writing
Sure you were.
to wasn't doing nothing, but
You
yeah,
don't just
yeah,
come out of the blue. Yeah.
yeah. Oh, a book. Like
Could you imagine?
that would be amazing.
I often
Well, there
wish
was one year where I wrote like I did 3 in 1 year, and I thought, oh, this is going to be my pace from now on, and that didn't happen. So
yeah, I'm in 2 this year, and it's a lot.
it's a lot. Yeah. Well, keep writing because I love you. I love your stuff. I love your voice.
Thank you.
So
Thank you.
we'll do some more things together. And like Lily and I are part of this group. We do movie night occasionally, which is really fun. So we find some random thing to watch together and mostly spend time talking, like half watching the movie. But it's fun.
But we've had some winners. There've been some really good movies in there.
There were some really good movies. Yeah. But anyway, all right. I guess we will wrap it up and let people get back to their Saturday evenings and let you get another Thai PA. Yeah.
And
I'm gonna go have some We've been making cider this summer, like our own hard cider. So I'm gonna
Like
have
at
some.
home?
uh
Wow. That seems really
Yeah.
hard.
No, I mean we don't juice the apples. We take like fresh pressed juice from the store and then make the cider with it. It's surprisingly easy and pretty
Really?
good. Yeah.
I'm not like, my husband actually just made before I came up here, he made a mango peach coconut pie.
Whoa.
This is not something I would do at all, ever. But I'll happily eat it the same way I would happily drink your cider.
Yeah. Yeah. Cool. All right.
Well, thank you so much for letting me chat with you about your book.
No, thanks for reading it and for being so awesome and
Great.
being such a talented writer and a cool person. And
Thank you. You too.
Lily rocks, guys. If you haven't read The Stand-In or The Comeback, get them right now. I demand.
Yeah. Well, I mean, please do.
Cool. We'll talk to you or hopefully see you guys at the next thing.
Yes. And good luck on Tuesday.
Thank you. Thank you.